Hello viewers and welcome to Top Note Productions. I am your presenter Oyuga Omolo. You remember that we have been discussing the set books, and we have been discussing Fathers of Nations, the Samaritan, and also the short stories, and that is a silent song. So we all have these books. These are the books that we have been presenting to you, and I believe that you have really enjoyed our presentations. Today's program will be on Fathers of Nations by Paul B. Vita, and we had started a discussion on the best approach to study and interpret Fathers of Nations. I know teachers are grappling with various methods so that the text is made simple or simpler to our students. And I also want to share with you my approach, which I believe is a simple method, because I've read through the text now 3 times, and there is a way in which when I read it, I get the interpretation very fast. I believe this can also assist you to help our students. We have dealt with a character called Professor Karanja Kimani, and as I said, that if you want to understand this book and interpret it in a very simple way, you go the character approach, because we realize that the themes that the writer presents in this book actually revolve around those characters. So that is why in our previous presentation, I gave a discussion on how the character of Professor Kimani brings out certain themes in the text. In today's program, I would like us to discuss something on unveiling Comrade Ngobile Melusi to bring out the themes. And which are these themes that are being brought out by Comrade Ngobile Melusi in this text? Number 1 is unemployment. Number 2 is human pain and suffering. There is also poverty that is brought out. Betrayal is also brought out by the character Ngobile Melusi. We also have rebellion. We also have patriotism, Neocolonialism, and also colonialism, brought out very well in this text if we study the character of Ngobile Melusi. So let's begin. Where do we meet Comrade Ngobile Melusi first in the text? The first time we meet Ngobile is when they're checking in at the Seamount Hotel, and they are supposed to register maybe at the reception of the Seamount Hotel. So while he is there and is about to register, we realize that there is a form that they are supposed to fill in. And in that form, one thing that comes out clearly is that he filled in any other space, but when it came to the area that required him to fill in his occupation, he indicated not applicable. At that point shows us the rebellious nature of Ngobile Melusi. He is someone who has lost a job. And therefore, one of the things that is being brought out here as a theme is a theme of rebellion. So that is where we first meet Ngobile Melusi, and we have already known that he is a very rebellious person. And that is why at the place where he is supposed to fill in his occupation indicates not applicable. So that tells us the rebellious nature of him. Number 2 is that it also reveals something about employment, because it indicates to us that Ngobile Melusi is actually not employed. Yet, he is someone who is actually so knowledgeable and needed to have been employed somewhere by the government, but he is not employed, and that is why he indicates on that space that it is not applicable. So it tells you that there is a high level of unemployment, because those people are knowledgeable who should actually be occupying positions are not occupying those positions, and one of them is Ngobile Melusi. Now, when you are through with that, then the next time that we meet him is when the guide calls them. But there is not so much that has been brought to us at that point when the guide is calling all of them. We have been told that he called Karanja Kimani, he called Ngobile Melusi, he called Saif Tahir, and he also called Pastor Chemak. But there is not much information that you are given about that call and his interaction with Ngobile Melusi. We have just been given his interaction with Pastor Chineke Chiamaka and Professor Karanja Kimani. The third time now that we meet Ngobile Melusi is again at that level of the registration. But remember, those are two episodes. There is a first episode where he's supposed to register and he doesn't, he actually feels not applicable at the space where he's supposed to give his occupation. The second time around that, but it's a different episode, is when now he goes through the registration process, and the idea that is being brought here is what we call the security checks. So the idea of security is being brought out here because Ngobile has to go through what we call the security checks, and there is a young man, a young guard, who is actually taking him through the processes. And something runs in his mind as a person, that the kind of security that we have, is it meant to deter crime, or is it meant to protect the citizens? So that is something that actually is given to us. So it's just a probing question whether the security systems that we have is meant to deter crime or probably to protect a person. So these are things that are running in the minds of Ngobile Melusi. Number two is that during the process, we realize that Ngobile Melusi is actually diabetic. That is why he walks along with a needle. And it is at the reception where the young man, the guard, realizes that he is carrying some kind of a child. That is how it's called in the text. And that is his needle, and that is his lifeline. Because the moment he loses that needle, then it means that he cannot inject himself anytime he's got an attack of diabetes, when his insulin is down or up. So we are not told the kind of diabetes that he's suffering from, but we know that he's walking along with the needle. So it is at that level that there is a kind of an argument between him and the security guard, because the security guard feels that he needs not to get in with that kind of gadget, but he insists that is his life and he cannot leave it behind. So there is that kind of interchange between Ngobile Melusi and the guide, and that nature, the rebellious nature of Ngobile Melusi, still comes out. And when we talk about the theme of rebellion, it is also there at the point of reception when Ngobile is going through the checking in. So still we can re-emphasize the idea of rebellion. So Ngobile goes through that process and finally is checked in as one of the Path 4 observers that will actually be attending the summit by the African heads of state. Then after that, the next episode, we meet Ngobile Melusi, is his interaction now with Tad Longway. And Tad Longway has actually invited Ngobile Melusi at a restaurant, and that is Chamanuka restaurant in downtown Harare. I think he's cleverly trying to recruit Ngobile Melusi, because Ngobile is someone who is very knowledgeable, very intelligent, and also has got that rebellion. Because remember, one of the objectives of AGDA is actually to harness the rebellion that is coming out of some very knowledgeable African and making that rebellion into what we call change. So they would use those rebellious, knowledgeable Africans to bring out change that they would want to see. So Tad Longway meets Ngobile Melusi in Chamanuka restaurant. And even at Chamanuka restaurant, there is something that comes out. I think it is insinuated that Ngobile is actually suffering some poverty, because the way he's eating is actually unbecoming. It is not very normal, and that brings out the poverty nature. Maybe he doesn't have a lot to eat, or probably he's suffering because he doesn't have the income to buy good food to eat. And therefore that eating of Ngobile Melusi, as it is being brought out in this text, shows some level of poverty. And you see, now Tad Longway is using that now to talk to him and making sure that he's using the money that he's got to buy him good food so that he gets some information from him, and probably after that recruits him as one of the Path Alpha observers. So what happens at that level is that we now begin to see other themes coming out during that discussion between Tad Longway and Ngobile Melusi. So Ngobile now begins to tell Tad his story. And how does his story begin? That they fought together with the current president, the so-called the bomber. And that tells you that Ngobile Melusi is a patriot because he was fighting for independence for his country. So the theme of patriotism is brought out very well when they fought together with the current president, who is nicknamed the bomber. And after this guy won the election, he took the country the wrong direction, and therefore the economy fell. In fact, the economy almost went into a depression. And when this happens, he actually wins an election, but that election is rigged. And that brings issues of bad governance. You have a president who doesn't actually obey the will of the people. He manipulated the election so that he wins that election. And that is an idea of bad governance that is very common in African countries. So that one comes out very well, and we are able to see it when Ngobile talks about how that election was rigged, and actually they lost an election. Remember that at some point, Ngobile Melusi had actually formed a political party, and this political party is NIP, New Independence Party. And when he was dissatisfied with the way the current president or the bomber was running the economy, he also wanted to run for the presidency. Unfortunately, they had divisions among those who were opposing the president, and finally they lost in this election. And when they lost in this election, Ngobile actually became a victim of the president. They thought they would win because of the issue of economy that had collapsed. And the West had actually brought some programs to assist or to resuscitate the economy, like the SAPs, structural adjustment programs. But actually, this actually also brings the idea of neocolonialism, where the West is coming with ideas that they think that can help Africa. And even after Zimbabwe implemented the SAPs, still the economy was not resuscitated. So what comes out very clearly is that always there is an attempt by the West to try to recolonize Africa, bring what we call the modern day colonialism, and that is brought out when they bring these things like the SAPs, structural adjustment programs. So that also comes out when you read through the story between Ngobile Melusi and Tad Longway. Now, as we move along, Ngobile tells us how after the election, now the bomber realized that these guys had opposed him, and he rigged the election and won. And so now he's using other methods to make sure that these people stay away from power. One of the ways that he used was tribalism. And tribalism also comes in as a theme in this text. Because Ngobile comes from the Dembele clan, or the Dembele tribe. And the bomber comes from the Shona tribe. Now he makes sure that people who are employed in government actually come from the Shona tribe and Dembele. And actually he uses Ngombile's tribe as a Dembele to make sure that he actually deals with Ngobile Melusi squarely. So how does this happen? Now, when he denies Ngobile Melusi an opportunity to work for the government, Ngobile Melusi now begins business. So he tries out business. And the bomber also makes sure that his businesses fail. Because you remember, it is the government that also controls the kind of businesses that we do. If the government wants to destroy your business, definitely your business will not go anywhere. So finally, the bomber actually makes sure that Ngombile's business fails or collapses. And when this business collapses, Ngobile is now relegated to the slum. So he goes to the slum area of a rally, and when he stays there, then the bomber again comes there and clears the slums. Now, his argument is that he's simply trying to reorganize the slums so that the slums look better. But we know the idea is actually to make sure that he punishes those who live in the slum, because it is these people who lived in the slum, many of them voted for the opposition. So he felt that he needed to clear them because it was part of the people who opposed him. So the best way to treat them, to him, was actually to clear them. And during that period, Ngobile lost a wife because the wife was staying there. So the house or the slum where they were living in actually was run down. And in the process, Ngobile's wife was killed in that process. And this makes Ngobile very bitter. And we begin to see what we call pain and suffering. He feels the death of the wife. Ziliza was actually Ngobile's wife. And he really loved the wife. And when this happened, Ngobile mourned for quite a while the death of his wife. And that is what happens in this text. Then, Ngobile has been holding this grudge all his life because he actually fought for the independence of his country, but the country has let him down. And because of this, he feels betrayed by the country. He's worked so much as a patriot to make sure that they gain independence. And after independence, again, he doesn't get anything out of it. So, the bomber or the government of Zimbabwe has actually betrayed Ngobile Melusi. The last time we meet Ngobile Melusi is when the summit is on, and the Path Alpha observers are there, and they also have to give their opinion about which way to go. Is it Path Alpha or way Omega? Of course, by this time, Ngobile has been recruited by Tad Longway. And when he stands to speak, he unfortunately beholds the president, and he becomes very bitter, remembering the betrayal, remembering the pain that he has suffered as a result of the mistreatment by the president. So what does Ngobile do? He actually confronts the president. But in that kind of scenario, because the security was tight during the summit, Ngobile is whisked out of the summit. And I think that is the end that we have about Ngobile Melusi. So I've been able to bring out so many themes that are brought out by Comrade Ngobile Melusi. I've talked about, number one, unemployment, human pain and suffering. I've talked about poverty, betrayal, family relations and love. I've talked about neocolonialism and colonialism. I've also talked about patriotism and also betrayal. I believe that this presentation has helped you to interpret the text. We hope that this one will help the students as they continue to interact with this book. Thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, kindly do so, because we have a lot of information coming from these books that we would like to share with you. Thank you very much, and may God bless you abundantly.